Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon in the sign of Taurus on the 27th of April 2025. This is not an easy energy because the main aspect that this new moon, which means the conjunction, the meeting of the sun and moon in the sign of Taurus holds, is actually a fixed grand cross, and that is the hardest energies in astrology. The cardinal grand cross might be a bit more dynamic, might sometimes feel a bit more intense, but the fixed grand cross, that's always very special because it's permanent change. That's where something is gonna transform in your life for good, and it doesn't come very easily. A cardinal grand cross can come rather very easily. It may transform our lives for good, but it can happen in a flash. Now, a fixed grand cross, even if it comes into our awareness in a flash, the transformation process is not that easy, not that comfortable. Now, of course, for example, people who have a lot of mutable energy in their charts can find many different ways and very, very quickly to adapt, to cope, to rearrange, but people with very strong fixed energy are gonna find this rather challenging. But the future, it's a new moon, which means we're creating something. Something is being created, but at the same time eliminated. So that can be very, very hopeful because whatever comes after such a rather powerful breakdown or breakthrough or both, if possible, type of energy, that is really up to us. And one of the planets which really highlights that whatever stirs after this energy is up to us is Mercury at 11 degrees of Aries, which means it's just out of its shadow path and it's covering new territory. In Aries is exactly, going forward, not looking back. This is a very action, a very execute execution oriented energy. Also pretty survival energy. And Neptune, also in the sign of Aries at the 0 degrees, still means that this is very much on the world stage, also, not just in our personal lives. And it speaks volumes about very many different Neptunian things. For example, something is definitely going to happen in the world of art, world of, music, film industry, etc., etc. But at the same time, Neptune, something is gonna really spill up or reveal itself from our collective unconscious, how we collectively truly feel about certain things that might be presented to us at that time, because Mercury is in Aries, very dynamic, news travels very quickly. Jupiter in the sign of Gemini still expands this. Jupiter doesn't even have to converse with anything. Its simple presence in Gemini is enough to make everything that is going on public, viral, news travels very, very quickly and has a lot of impact, Jupiter. And also, Jupiter is the planet of law. Anything might have legal consequences, and on the world stage, of course, that legal is international, the highest possible octave of what law is. Now, speaking about law, in this Grand Cross, uh, Mars is very close to Varuna. Varuna is the higher so they say, the higher octave of Saturn, the dwarf planet responsible with cosmic equilibrium, justice, righteousness, but again on a deep cosmic level. And Varuna is at 7 degrees of Leo, so it converses directly. The square with the new moon is exact. Mars being next to it, of course, is part of the square as well and of the Grand Cross. And since we're speaking about that, there is yet another energy that kind of speaks to justice and righteousness and judgment, if that makes sense, because there is another trans-Neptunian object in the sign of Scorpio at 7 degrees, so opposing Varuna and squaring, opposing the new moon and squaring exactly Varuna. That's what I wanted to say. And this is Radamanthus, in Greek mythology, the son of Zeus and Europa. So very linked to earthly justice, or better said, what's below, because he was the king of Crete, but a demigod. So eventually he became like the judge of the dead. In astrology, his symbolism is pretty dual. In its higher octave, it can represent, well, many times justice and righteousness, which defies the cycle of life and death. An injustice that has taken place, regardless of, as I said, life or death, will still karmically have to enact itself. So, balance itself out, if you know what I mean. An equilibrium to reach the state of justice. In its negative expression, it is where it's blind, bigot type of judgment, where there's no excuse, there is no mercy, there is only the blind, hammer of sentence descending down. So in a more balanced way, well, it is the judge of the dead, and there is so much activity, and I'm so sorry to have to even say this, on the other side, because of the vast number of souls that have found themselves thrown across by bombs, by violence, by all that is happening in various different places of the world and in various situations, not just the typical classical wars that we all know, but so very many other crises ultimately, because that's what they are. So the souls, very many times, what they could not, for example, affirm, speak out, consolidate, or fight against, or choose against, or in life, many times they have a saying after they're over, because ultimately everyone has some, at least genetic, um, family members, even if not directly, even if very, very distant, in the world of the living. So that gives a certain influence. And another element that this is very strongly affirmed by is that an asteroid Hecate is also at 7 degrees of Scorpio, and Hecate has a lot to do with, well, prophecy, divination, being able to see the future in the sign of Scorpio, especially uncover secrets all about the unconscious. And Hecate is also a deity which is linked to the dead, helping always the dead find their way, the goddess of crossroads, goddess of magic and witchcraft, a very, very benevolent deity, which even at the Olympian wars, with Titans against the Olympian gods, she did not choose sides. Of course, ultimately, she helped the Olympians, but she stayed neutral, just aiding and helping everyone who she could. And she was also Persephone's teacher after she ended up in the underworld, and Persephone's basically mother figure in the underworld. So she's basically at Scorpio opposing this new moon. And this opposition, and of course, the main element of the Grand Cross of the opposition is exactly Black Moon Lilith. As we both know, as we all know, Black Moon Lilith is not a planet, but rather a point based on calculation, the dark side of the moon, so to speak. And she opposes the new moon as well. That's extra dark, that's extra shadowy. This is where something is almost like destined to be unraveled, revealed, basically, cast into awareness, but in a fated way, in a not typical, for example, full moon way, because the full moon would represent where the moon is illuminating something, not necessarily through light or the typical expression of revealing something or typical perception. New moon is very susceptible to deduction, to something indirect or as a domino effect. Something is brewed, something is born, and will ultimately lead to the uncovering or revelation of something. This is a very, very powerful release energy as well because of Scorpio Taurus axis. What is eliminated, Scorpio, and what is embodied, Taurus? So that ultimately leads us to the fact that there needs to be a certain kind of power over this. Because many times in life, it's basically on autopilot what we eject, reject, eliminate, and what we accept and integrate, like Taurus. Other times, this is exactly, sorry, not cardinal, but fixed Grand Cross. This is when it's not autopilot. We need to really have a strong word to say here. And that leads us to the other elements of the Grand Cross. Mars, again, I repeat, with Varuna next to it at 7 degrees Varuna, cosmic justice, divine righteousness. And Varuna is not alone. Also at 7 degrees of Leo, there is an asteroid that I will not need to interpret even one word to you because its name says absolutely everything. Karma. So that's it. This is all I need to say about karma, its name, and it's hand in hand with another karmic dwarf planet, basically, Varuna. Justice, righteousness, the cosmic order and balance, etc., etc. Well, that's ultimately also karma. That's ultimately also karmic in nature, isn't it? And these three, because Mars, along with Mars, will square Black Moon Lilith, and actually Black Moon Lilith, not just the stable Lilith, which has a stable orbit, not orbits, transit, but also the true Lilith, which can change from one day to the other. Both of them are together opposing the new moon. So Lilith is there, and she has a strong word to say because both Liliths are together in the sky. And apart from Lilith, as I said, Hecate and Rhadamanthus. So this is very, very karmic in nature. Extremely and of course, Grand Cross needs yet a fourth square, and that is provided by Pluto in fixed air sign Aquarius. So Pluto, it's just like karma. I won't need to tell you all that much about Pluto because everyone kind of knows how fated Plutonian aspects feel like, how strong they are, how powerful. And since Pluto opposes Mars, we are really going to be feeling this. However, this Pluto opposing Mars is not necessarily a new energy because we had it before. Sometimes in the beginning of the year and last year in autumn as well. And this energy was about mostly what frustrates us deeply at this more like last year, the end of last year. What kind of frustrations did we experience? Then the beginning of this year, January, somewhere in January, uh, what options do we have? How do we make a change? How do we, whatever the Pluto Mars opposition means and meant for us personally? As in, is something taking your power away, autonomy, sovereignty, call it however you want? Is someone's influence very impacting, way too strong on you? Power dynamics within relationship, friends, connections, anything Aquarian and the Leo Aquarius. And Leo Aquarius axis is also quite about, I wanted to say romantic, but that's not the right word. Sensual and heart-based, because Aquarius is lovability and Leo is passionate love. So it's also power dynamics in this. Love is different. Every person's love can be, and not just can be, but is felt differently. So this is where sometimes a Mars Pluto opposition is. Can we accept a different type of love than we are used to? And this can go from, you know, radically different things to very, very subtle things. For example, within a relationship, a totally normal relationship, for example, one partner's way of love expression is more like physical, more earthly in a sense. Uh, for example, bodily love, but also small material gestures and earthly type. Maybe their partners is very airy. The earthly, well, it's there, it's appreciated, but what makes them really feel the love is the ideas, the intellectual company of the other partner. So you see where love means, especially being able to feel love and the way love nurtures the partners, that is different for this type of couple in my example. So a Pluto Mars opposition can bring such a situation where they need to talk, a confrontation. Your love is I accept you, it's unique to you, but maybe it doesn't work for me. And the other partner probably feels the same way. So do they split apart? Do they compromise? For example, Aquarius. Friends can be a very good way to compromise. So if these two people give each other more liberty, for the intellectual type of person, friends can give that intellectual, mental, uh, airy satisfaction, because a friendship is also love. common subjects, hobbies, spending time. That's also an expression of love. And then the rest of what love means can be very efficiently provided by the partner. Then the partner is enough. And vice versa for the other partner. They can find for the earthly satisfaction friends or family members, someone who appreciates their material gestures, or why not work for charity, etc., etc. Or maybe they can find a friend with benefit if that is. Anyway, this aspect can lead to compromise, and that can resolve the situation. So this doesn't necessarily have to mean separation, even though for some couples that's what it is gonna mean. But understand this example in any way. This can be work, job, contract, a way you do things, a modus operandi. Maybe it's time to upgrade. Like, for example, in the medical profession, they have to have like courses and specialized training from, I don't know, year to year or 2 years, or sometimes even 6 months to 6 months, depending on what they do. So each and every course or training or conference like that is like a little upgrade, because the professional embraces the new, the next, and their horizons, want it or not, well, they widen. Even if they don't necessarily, they're not that type of person, it doesn't matter. It still gives them something new, something different. So this is exactly how it can play out in the lives of many people, like a forced upgrade. Something that you don't necessarily want, are ready for, consider that it's going to be all that much beneficial to you, or even if you see the benefit, it can be very uncomfortable. Taurus is comfort. So for whatever reasons, you're not looking forward to it, but faced with the situation, faced with the need or whatever, fixed Grand Cross. The transformation is permanent. If it's a course or a study or an upgrade you really don't feel like doing, well, maybe doing it, embracing it, is gonna lead you to benefits which you can't even imagine. Remember all the karmic planetoids here. Well, maybe you will learn something that will do you truly justice. Maybe you simply, due to your fixed, right? More rigid, because this is fixed energy choices in life. You just could not get into an ideal position for yourself. Life almost like pinballs you exactly where, but that's never comfortable. May it be a course, an interview, a meeting, stepping out of, if life forces you to step out of your comfort zone in one way or another, remember this: as uncomfortable as it may seem, it can end you to somewhere very ideal that you could not see coming or could not even work towards, uh, if left only to your own devices. Because this is how fixed energy sometimes works. It goes for a comfortable minimum, right? Or it goes for safety or greater stability. Many times in life, the rewards, the jewels, the treasure doesn't lie there. It lies in uncertainty and adventure and Leo energy. Mars, very comfortable in the sign of Leo. It is still opposed by Pluto. So this can feel like there is no choice but to risk, or the risk in any way, shape, and form outweighs in the good that it will do staying in the situation. Or when confrontation, expressing your will is not optional. This can also be a powerful financial energy because Taurus is finances and Scorpio is also shared resources. Another financial energy. Black Moon Lilith, the need is real. There is something in your life that it may be very intimate. It may be very private. Something internal may be just. Scorpio, the instinct, the unconscious, the animalistic part of the unconscious, the id mind. Um, what I wanted to say, and also remember Hecate is there. So it's also about the depth of the soul, the vision, the soul vision, basically. So something that is very intimate needs to be accepted, and it needs to be also honored and satisfied, because that's the realm of Scorpio. The shadow, the animal, the sometimes the weird, the unusual, the like Scorpio rules fetishes, for example. That type of energy that's in everyone, all of us. There are certain moments in life when that needs a certain satisfaction and honor of its own, because we are what we are. Of course, for other people, this is a very strong elimination energy. For example, substances, Scorpio toxicity, a radical decision where no more, I don't know, quit smoking, drinking, substances, internet, social media, anything that is, well, Pluto, addictive. And actually, Pluto holding this aspect, like not just this aspect, being part of the Grand Cross, the internet might be the source of some kind of surprise or something unexpected. Of course, it can also be the case where something goes viral and the internet is the spreader of the news. This can be a very revolutionary energy. As I said, this is where I had enough. Time is here. I cannot take any more. Something reached its very, very limits, and Pluto and the fixed energy Scorpio, Black Moon Lilith, the primal female, the feminine, the rebel energy. Uranus on Algol. Actually, Uranus on Algol, conjunct fixed star Algol, the head of something falls. And the head of the Catholic Church passed on, I do believe, today. So the symbolism is already starting to enact. And we will see more. The head of something being no more. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean passing on. Stepping down, a sudden change, an upgrade, a revolution. Or remember how Perseus used the head of Medusa to defeat Cetus? The head of something can be very useful in an unexpected situation, in a very grave and dire situation. But with Mars in the sign of Leo, this is a very, very eruptive energy. With new moon in Taurus, again, unstable. This is also super new moon, so we can expect very strong weather phenomenon or earthquake or stuff like that. And also Mars in Leo, well, fire. This can be, as I said, a demand, a cry out, a strong investment of energy and efforts into a big change. So that spells revolutionary energy, inner revolution. For example, within the United States, the Western countries, needless to say, the Middle East, but at the same time, this can also represent confrontational energy, but a confrontational energy where Pluto, someone, something, like let's say a nation, overpowers another one within a war in such a great degree that the war ends. Because as I said, Mars, as comfortable as it is in the sign of Leo, it opposes Pluto, so it's powerless. And Pluto in Aquarius is technology, all internet, etc., etc. Also, space news, galactic news, perhaps, news about we are not, which already went viral, that they discovered some kind of fumes that only algae produce in another exoplanet. But that's ridiculously, how should I say, simple. Algae, no one cares about algae. Like, right? Especially in such a time. But anyway, there can be surprises in the conflicts that are especially a power shift, a power dynamic change that enters after the new moon with the creational energies of the new moon. Financially speaking, this is also very, very turbulent period, and because of the financial axis. And speaking about finances, Saturn conjunct Venus still. Mercury left its shadow, but Venus has not yet. Venus hasn't even entered Aries yet. So Venus is conjunct Saturn. Venus is the planet linked to money, finances, wealth, banking, all that stuff. Conjunct Saturn, hard reality check, strong measures, restrictions, discipline, but in Pisces also morality, because both of them are also conjunct the North Node in Pisces. Rewriting history, making something right, making sure it was something, let's say, horrible, or a financial crisis or something was for the last time. Lesson learned. But this is a very heavy energy if we add it to the Grand Cross. There is also a trine where Mars and Varuna receive a trine, that also means karma, receive a trine from dwarf planet Ixion. Lawlessness. Ixion is in the sign of Capricorn. So this can mean if a certain law, if the common rule is corrupt and goes against divine law by its very nature, then it is Mars's duty to revolt against. But at the same time, this can also represent if a law is misused, misinterpreted, or if something sacred is not respected. Again, it will provoke strong action, strong, better said, reaction, revolt. Mars and Leo, again, courage, bravery, fire, passion, strong passion. Not not necessarily only in a romantic sense, but in other senses, where heated battle, fight, taking big risks. This is when we will see big risks play out, either in combat, in wars, or in any other way, shape, and form. Leo is also the sign of royalty and leaders in the sense of kings, etc. So heads of the Grand Cross. So the pressure is on them. The leaders of whatever that is, the pressure is on them. And remember, this is a new moon. Things will never be the same again. Oh, and I forgot dwarf planet Haumea in the sign of Scorpio, who is also part of the Grand Cross. So really, really strong energy. And Ixion, again, trining Mars, is really going to stir things up. Fighting against bad laws or bad rulings, bad decisions of leaders is going to be a big stir up here. But also outside of the context of the new moon, because the new moon, it is permanent change, but it might not be something, how should I say, which leaves a big crater forever. It might be something that happens quickly, drastically, and it's just a short episode. However, the Mars opposing Pluto is not like that. That leaves a permanent effect. Why? Because this opposition is for the third time in the larger Mars retrograde season. So it is meaningful. It is a big lesson or a big action, Mars, right? That needs to be taken, or something stopped Pluto, the end of permanent transformation. So this Mars, the Mars aspect, does point to permanent change. And now I would like to look at the Sabian symbol of this new moon, which says a sleigh without snow, or a sleigh on a terrain without snow. Now, this can mean more than one thing. The most simple or natural Taurus, right, thing that comes into our minds is anticipation, because that can represent where, okay, the sleigh doesn't have the snow yet, but in due time, the turn of seasons are guaranteed, so its time will come. But until the time comes, it can be used in so very many different ways. We just need to step again, Taurus, step outside of the comfort zone, step outside of the norm, sometimes even step outside of the natural, because on one hand, that is how nature herself adapts and evolves and mutates. She steps out of her own norms. So the sleigh can be used in many ways when it's not on snow. This represents the creative nature of the new moon, especially if a new moon takes place at this degree. It's creativeness, it's resourcefulness. It is nature's own way of diverting from her own norms in order to create something new, something exquisite. So the sleigh can be used as a flower pot stand, as decoration, as a small coffee table. Or in this day and age, remember, these Sabian symbols were channeled, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 1890s or something like that, a very long time ago. Now there are like water sleighs, sand sleighs, or in grass, or as I saw, they put like a huge garbage bag, actually not just one, a whole roll of them. They just unroll it, soak it with water and dish soap, and the sleigh is gonna be 100% functional, even better than with snow. So the Sabian symbol. And in a more elevated way, it can mean that, well, the sleigh can also fly if, like, for example, Santa Claus, it flies. So faith can elevate everything. The impossible can be very much possible outside of the matrix. And if we look at the Grand Cross here, well, this is such a delicate energy, as in it digs deep, it really drills into the concrete here, this fixed, that we will need this power of faith, this power of, well, ultimately hope, Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, that if need arises, even the impossible is going to become possible with faith in ourselves, in, again, Aquarius, a higher force, in our hearts, and the courage, Leo, that is in it. And sometimes Scorpio, the help of others, or our own magnetism, our own instinct, something that is valuable within us that will get us there. So this is how I see not just this new moon phenomenon, but also the Mars opposing Pluto, which, as I said, is the predominant energy, is the most impacting of all of the aspects, even though Mars receives a quincunx from Ixion. So this means that it really needs to operate outside of its norm, even though it's very empowered in the sign of Leo. The new moon receives a trine from Ixion as well, because Ixion is in the sign of Capricorn. So this breaks the comfort zone. This breaks the norm. This breaks tolerance. That's what it means. And what I wanted to say with the Mars quincunx by Ixion is that, opposed by Pluto, this is really about the end of one state and the beginning of another, regardless what has to be done, regardless of the cost, regardless of the consequence, because this puts a lot of pressure on Leo, the passion center. And that means, when an animal is desperate enough, it will try anything to satisfy its needs or survival. So this is the type of energy that we get here. The transformation, the compromise, the confrontation, or whatever this will mean, will lead to something being different from that moment onward. So thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, bye for now.